right, welcome to BSN for Pros Live, everyone. Thank you for joining us. If you are watching this live cast or webcast, and if you're watching it on the replay, make sure in the comments below you put hashtag replay. If you're watching it on our YouTube channel, make sure you put a little like, thumbs up, or say hello in the comments below, or subscribe to the channel. Look up BSN for Pros on YouTube. Very easy to find. So today's guest, I have a great. And I always say this every time I start these lives before I start. We have a little post conversation, and we're having a great conversation, and it starts to have fun. And we're like, oh, we got to go in, we got to record, we got to start recording. So we're going to jump right into our conversation. So let me introduce you to Saul Kaye. Saul Kaye, what's up, my friend? What's going on?
Good morning. Good morning. It's all
Good morning,
good.
brother. How are you? So before our conversation, we were talking about parenting. We were talking about our kids. So tell everyone a little bit about yourself. Just get a little intro.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm a full-time musician, dad here in the Bay Area. So that's San Francisco. I know there's a lot of bays in the United States, but the Bay Area we call San Francisco, Berkeley, Oakland, San Jose, Silicon Valley. I'm on the west side, so I'm just south of San Francisco. I'm on the northern tip of what's called Silicon Valley. So we like to say, my wife and I, with music, we keep tech workers sane. So I've been a full-time musician for my whole life. I have 10 records out. CDs, you may know them as streams, Spotify's, and I've produced 8 for other artists as well. And I'm a father of 2. That's the thing I'm super passionate about. I call myself a dadpreneur, and I'm also an entrepreneur, businessman as well. And I help people get paid to be home with their families because that makes the world a better place.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I love that dadpreneur. I love that whole movement that's happening. What inspired you to do that? To say, you know what? I know because you were busy before. Let's talk about that. You were busy. You were in the busy world, right? You were busy, and then you had your family. So what was that one push that said, you know what? I need to stay home and take care of my kids and work from home?
Yeah, well, very simply. I mean, I come from a broken family. My parents started getting divorced when I was 11, and they finished when I was 18, and it was challenging, to put it mildly. So that's my story. And I, as a touring musician, I saw way down the road and all my touring musician friends, and I saw a lot of challenges there with basically time, right? That's, how do you spell love to a child? It's Time. That's how you spell it, right? So I knew all these early moments of first steps, first time on the bike, first words, all these first, you never ever get back, right? So I know a lot of dads miss them because they're working, and that's cool. There's definitely no shame in that for sure. But for me, I wanted to figure out a way to get off the road, at least half time off the road, so I could really show up and take my kids to the park every day. And I gotta say, I'm very grateful. The other day, I asked my son Elijah, who's now 8, I said, "What's your earliest memory? What do you remember?" And he said, "Dad, I remember going to the park with you." And I was like, oh. So anyway, so I did it. So that's really why I wanted to do it. And that was my motivation.
That's awesome. You said time, and that is so, and that's crazy. Sometimes I think we're all on this morning. I walked my daughter to school this morning, and I was thinking it's just awesome to have that time to walk her to school, right? Say, hey, we're gonna walk her to school. And I have a 7-year-old little girl. She likes to play hard to get with me. I'm gonna say, hey, Daddy, can I have a kiss? Give me a kiss. But she's like, no, Dad, no. But on the way back, and before our conversation, I said, what's the one thing that motivates many people? And it's time. I think that's something that's the motive. It's not the money, it's not the fancy car, it's the time to have with our family and the time with our kids. What is the one? How do you spend your time? How does a day go for you?
Well, let's see, a normal day. I'm usually up around 5:15, and I do my morning prayer, meditation, writing. I have a little morning ritual that I do, and it has certain elements, but there's always prayer, there's always writing, there's always reading. It's part of a miracle morning thing, but I've kind of adapted it to my own format. And then usually for my team, we have morning mindset trainings Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 6 to 7 a.m. And that's inspiration training, specific training on our business, or mindset training, or skill set training as well, personal development. And then from 7 to 8:30, with my kiddos and helping them kind of, shoes and socks, which is the big battle over here, getting the shoes and socks on, getting them out the door. I take them to school every day except for today because I had this interview, but every other day I take them to school, pick them up. And then from 9 to 10, I work out. And some variation of a lot of things. We can talk about that. And then usually from 10 to 1, I'm doing business building activities for my business, and I take a little break. Sometimes I take a little walk, and then from 1 to 3:30 or 4, I'm helping people in my team and helping people through mentoring and leadership. And then I pick up my kids between 4:30 and 5, and then we have what I call bed, bath, and beyond time, which is from 5:30 to about 8:30, as we are attempting to feed our kids and get them in bed and read to them and do that whole nighttime ritual. And then in the evening, I have time with my wife.
Man, do you have a very, very busy day? Wow. You and how do you sustain that energy? Like what like because to me I felt like I had to take like I was like I'd probably need about 3 naps in between those busy days. Do you take naps or you like I mean I know you meditate, the meditation is great.
Yeah.
But do
How
you
do I sustain energy? That's funny. My mom is actually a great napper. She's napped every single day of her life, and she's 75 now. Sorry, she's a little older now. But anyway, so occasionally I'll take a power 20-minute nap. But exercise really, like, you got to think of yourself as a power plant, right? The power plant generates energy. How do you generate energy? Through movement, right? And so I eat super clean, and then I take a lot of supplements and vitamins, and I'm part of a wellness company. So we have a lot of an unfair advantage over there in terms of supplements and things like that. That's how I do it. Yeah.
What's your let's go into your supplements because let's talk about your supplements. What's the supplements that you use for you? I know can you tell us the brand, or can you say what you use, or what you don't have to say the brand or whatever you want.
So there's a few things I take on the regular. I take something called Peak Performance, which is a multivitamin, and actually there's been 4 independent studies on this particular brand of vitamin that have proven efficiency in 25 key health areas like resting heart rate, blood pressure, cholesterol, free radicals. And bottom line is I had done 0 blood work in 10 years because I'm kind of afraid of needles. We'll talk about that later. But I was getting some life insurance, and so I got all my blood work done, and all my levels, all my bad levels were down and good levels were up. So like A1C levels and things like that. So that's called Peak Performance. And then I also take probiotics at night. And I take something called Activate C, which is like a blend of astragalus, echinacea, zinc, vitamin E, and something else in there, beta carotene, I think. So, and then I just drink a lot of water. I also stopped drinking a few years ago. I wasn't like I'd have like 1 drink a week, but I thought stopping drinking would actually make me a better parent, just because that 1 drink I had to actually help me be a better parent wasn't actually working. So I eat super, super clean. My wife keeps a super clean diet and kitchen. And what else do I take supplements? Oh yeah, protein powder.
Yeah. Let's talk about the drinking, because I feel you, man. I feel you. It's been about almost 5 years since I've had alcohol.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we before our conversation, we're talking about parenting, about being, and I do believe that I hit a point, right, where this was me. I love to have a beer after, like, when I got home. I got into those IPAs, and it just and I didn't, and it wasn't, I don't know if it was okay, it probably was affecting me physically. I probably was gaining a little weight, maybe, but I was training and working out hard. But it got to a point where I started saying, you know what, this is probably affecting my decision making in certain choices that I'm making, because the alcohol, I think when we get home, you try to escape, or you try to relax, or it's like this thing where you try to do, where you say, you know what, I just need a beer, just whatever it is, right? And then really what it was me being able to process, I would say just process what's really going on. So yeah, so it's been 5 years since I've had any alcohol. Just cut cold turkey. Haven't had any alcohol. So I do believe that's great. How do you sustain from that? If anyone out there that's having that challenge, say, hey, what are the things that because you talk about mindset. What's one thing that you say to yourself that say, hey, you know what, I had to do this, and I'm going to keep on doing it.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I've been reading a lot about brain health lately because, my mom had some issues. We have a history of Alzheimer's in our family. And I always tease people. I say I have early onset CRS, which is can't remember squat. But no, seriously, brain health, the reason why we go to beer, alcohol, whatever, is because we need a mental break. It's not the physical. It's not like, like me having a scotch a week is like, I just need a mental break. Okay. But there's plenty of ways you can do that. I'll give you a few. Okay. But this is going to be hard and it's going to sound odd. Lie down and stare at the ceiling and allow your mind to wander. That's a break for your brain, right? Because we're processing the amount of information we have to process every single day is like insane. It's just overwhelming. What are some statistics? Like 7,000 ads we're seeing like every single day. And every time you go on social media, you're making so many decisions. We have decision fatigue. So at the end of the day, it's just like, God, I just don't want to think, right? And that's why people like, hey, let me just do drugs. I don't want to think. And I have nothing against alcohol. Like, I don't think it's inherently a bad thing. But just for me, for my mental clarity, like there's tons of things to do. Stare at clouds. Go play with a cat. This is why there are all these like COVID cats and COVID dogs, right? People needed like little emotional security, but they also just needed a mental break. And the easiest way to get a mental break is it's exhausting thinking about the future or the past, right? Being in the present moment, like for example, playing cards with your kids. That's a great mental break. So there's a lot of ways to create this similar response without getting dehydrated or whatever.
Yeah. Man, I never heard of staring at the wall. I'll try that.
It's
But I
hard.
think yeah, I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna try that because it's true. Like I think we create these habits, right? Like it's the easiest form. I think that going and having alcohol is the easiest way to get away or to get away from that decision. We talk about that fatigue that's going on in our brain. It's just easy. It's the easy way. And then I think when we like challenges, when you're someone that wants to be challenged and you like hard dealing with things, like that's just the easy way to get away from things. And there's and you're right. Like now I get home, I play with my kids, and yeah, I'm like there's times where I'm just kind of like, or there's things in the back of your mind,
Mhm.
but and you're going to go through, I think as a person, you're going to go through some challenges, right? You're going to learn how to handle communication differently with people, especially with your spouse. Like that's happens to me where like I'll be quiet and I'm thinking in my mind, in my head, before I would sit down with a beer and whatever. Now I'm just like trying to process, and she's like, what's going on? And I'm like, this, and then it becomes like a whole different conversation. It may even turn into some kind of argument, but it's not about her or it's not about the family. It's just something else going on. And for the past 20 years, we've never been able to handle a problem, right? Or something. So that's what we want to do, the same thing with our kids, right? And then you get to a realization like, man, maybe I need to like work it out. So now we talk about our kids because we want to talk about our kids. How, for that, how are you able to handle, like you have a 5 and 8-year-old, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
5 and 8-year-old. How you, when you see them like going through things, how are you, all the stuff that you're learning now, and
Yeah.
you see them maybe like about to do something, or you're like, hey, are we, what's your how do I put this? I'm trying to find the right word for it. Is what's your scope on raising your kids and your boys? Like how are you doing this? Yeah,
Well,
being a dadpreneur.
it's trial by fire. I gotta say, Benjamin. I mean, there's no, we were talking earlier how I practiced for 10,000 hours of music before I did my first professional gig. And we have no practice for parenting, right? It's just totally on the job training, and so it's a moving target. It's a day by day practice of awareness. But like there's a lot that I do, and there's a lot that I try, and I fail all the time. I fail all the time, right? But in terms of like, what am I putting in their environment? Like, I'll try to listen to personal development. Like, even though they say it's boring, like Jim Rohn is on the way to school, they're going to remember something from that long term. I know they are, right? I remember my dad listening to Tony Robbins when I was like 16. He had the cassettes. It's like Personal Power or something, and that impacted me for sure. So, kind of like what's in their environment. And then I'll just give you a real-time example. Like this morning, my son has to read for 10 minutes or 15 minutes a day in the morning for his school, and he has to, have a sign off. So he was reading it quietly, and my daughter, like, sometimes she gets into it. So she said something to him, and he pulled her hair. And so I went over, and I'm like, what did you do? Because I heard, obviously. What did you do? What happened? And then I said, was that a good choice? And he said, no. I'm like, okay, good. Well, then let's separate in different rooms so you guys don't, pull each other's hair out. So that was like a definite win. So I'm trying to get them to just be aware of what they're doing. Like, hey, let's pause for a minute, take a breath, let's analyze what just happened. And one thing that I can say that my wife and I have given to our kids is, hey, let's stop and take a breath. I mean, literally, I don't think, Benjamin, I took a deep breath until I was like 25 doing yoga.
No.
That was not a part of my growing up culture. Hey, take a breath. Just take a minute, right? And so if I can give them like tools to deal with their big emotions and they're huge, then I think at least we're equipping them with options. Now, they may not always choose the best option, but hey, at least they have a tool belt.
I think that you hit the nail on the head on this one, because when I was asking you the question, like, I guess the question was, how do you want to raise your kids? But there really is no right way. There is no great question to ask a parent, because that's messed up. That's a messed up question. We want, you're always going to be adapting. You're always going to be learning something new. We're trying to figure it out too. Every kid is different. Every person's different. We're raising human beings, and all of a sudden they're going to change. One day they're different. They're evolving. And you hit the nail on the head. We want to give them options. We want to give them options and tools so they can make better choices than we had, right? Like we didn't have the choices and options when we were growing up. We didn't have the information. And I think there's too many options too, right? And too many options for good choices.
Yeah.
And there's also too many choices for bad choices.
Yeah. And I think one thing that we try to focus on, like if there was like one or two things you'd want your kids to walk away from, when they leave your house, when they leave your home, what are the one or two qualities that you really want them to have, right? This is what I think of. Obviously, there's a lot, right? But for us, for my wife and I, it's like, I want my son to be a mensch. That's a Yiddish word. It means a good person, right? It means a person that looks to do good in the world, that helps others. So that's the main thing. Like, and we talk a lot about, I don't talk to my children like children. We just talk like this. Like I don't go into some weird baby voice, even when they were babies, and it's kind of funny. They would meet people and they would talk to them like you would talk to a 2-year-old, and they look at them like, Dad, what's wrong with this? Why aren't they talking like a normal person? But anyway, so we talk to them like adults, which helps their language. That's the first thing. But also we talk about big topics. We'll talk about religion or God, or like, what does money mean? What is value? What are these things, right? What is a job? So we just keeping an open forum for what we talk about. And then I have very strong opinions about things in the world and my views. And I want to impart critical thinking. That's a huge thing. Like, be a good person, be able to be a critical thinker. So you can assess the situation, as my Adrian Williams would say, my Peloton instructor. You got to assess the situation and then choose. One other thing I'll say, there's a lot more to say about this. On the way to school the other day, my kids sometimes get into it in the car. Maybe this is a common theme amongst you parents, right? Because they're in a small space. And I told my son, I said, he was upset about something. I said, I get it. I hear you. You're upset. But ultimately, you get to choose how you want to feel. No one can make you feel anything. And I know it's like super advanced concept, and I'm still working on this myself. But at least I planted the seed that he has personal choice in terms of what he's choosing to feel and focus on. And maybe that'll sink in, hopefully.
Yeah. I totally agree. You were talking about how we talk to little kids. Kids will surprise you, man. They understand. They're not.
For sure.
We think my 7-year-old, you can talk to her like how we're talking here, and she understands the conversation. She'll ask a question, and I'll be like, "Oh yeah," and I'm like, "Why am I talking to her like that?" Like, I'm glad you pointed it out, because she needs to be like how Dad talks to you, how Dad talks to this, and this is what we're trying to get at. This is where I'm learning is a good reminder, right? Like, I like to talk to her sweet and be daddy, but sometimes when she has a question, it's probably just good to just explain it to her like you would explain it to a coworker or someone in your team or someone in your sales team. We'll go into that, but someone that's your working professional. Let's talk about your sales. Let's talk about what you're doing. Let's talk about so one of the things you want to talk about is sales and value, right? Something that you want to talk, was that what you wanted to, I'm sorry.
Well, I think that the difference between leadership, mentorship, and
Yes,
just sales,
exactly.
right?
Perfect. Yeah, let's go into it. Awesome.
Okay. Well, I think
Leadership. Let's don't go into leadership.
let's start with leadership. Okay. So everything rises and falls on leadership. Very famous John Maxwell quote, right? And mentorship, right? Mentorship's wisdom without waiting. And unfortunately, like I'm in the home business space. There's a lot of people selling stuff, which is great. I mean, the whole world is sales. Everything is sales, right? If you're a parent, you're definitely in sales. You're in some hard sales. Okay. You got to sell your kids on the value of putting on their shoes. You got to sell your kids on the value of getting on time, right? To school. So everyone's in sales. Okay. But what I've been blessed to be mentored by people that, they've made a lot of money. Okay. That's I guess maybe that's not a given, but they've, 6, 7, 8-figure earners, but they've taken time to mentor me. And that is what my first 3.5 years, 4 years in kind of the home-based business space, I had no mentorship at all. I was just selling stuff and kind of grinding it out. And I mean, I made my living selling CDs every single night in bars for 15 years. I had my quota was for me, I had to sell 10 CDs a night, talking to complete strangers. So can I sell? Absolutely, I can sell. But selling things and leading and mentoring others, they're two different genres, right? They're both related, but the difference between people that really create legacies and dynasties and really actually get free is leadership and mentorship, right? And if you're watching this and you're thinking, well, I'm not a leader. Yes, you are. You're leading yourself right now. You chose to watch this. You chose to pay attention. So you're leading yourself. If you're in a family, you're leading your family. If you have a team or if you have employees, you're leading them. Everyone's a leader to a certain degree, right? And it starts by leading yourself, right? That's why self-discipline is like the gateway to freedom. So does that make sense so far? I don't want to get too far off.
No, I got it. It's good.
Yeah. And so, ultimately, we live in a world of people, right? And Benjamin and I were talking about that in the beginning, like the lost art of conversation, which is why I appreciate this. And so I'll have people approach me about things all the time online. Hey, brand new thing launching, whatever. And, I'm unrecruitable, but I still will say to everyone that does that, hey, thanks for reaching out. I said, I'm old school. We got to sit and have a cup of sweet tea like we're in the South and actually have a conversation and get to know each other. If I like you as a person and we have some common interests and some common values, then we're going to talk about business. That's how I am. That's not how most people are, but this is just the way that I roll, right? It has to be relational first, because on the other side of every transaction is a person, even if it's a computer doing the transaction, right? Even on the other side, if you're buying, selling stocks, there's someone that owns that stock that you're buying. There's someone that's selling that stock that, so whatever the widget is that you're selling, there's people on either side of that. So the lost art of connection is why I'm so glad that we're doing this, because that is what makes the difference. Every leader that you know in the world has a team of people that have helped them move forward, whether it's accountants, lawyers, coaches, mentors, business mentors, advisors. And the higher up the leader is, the bigger their team of people, right? So if you're stuck at some place in your life, in any genre, it takes about 6 seconds to Google something, right? But to get someone to mentor you through the process, whether it's, we were talking about MMA earlier, or business, or parenting, or whatever, to get someone to actually slow down enough in their life and take time away from their family to mentor you, that is a gift. That is a gift. And most people aren't willing to do that with others because they haven't had someone do that with them necessarily. But the people that I know that are at the highest levels of any genre, whether it's music or business or sports, they have been mentored and they are mentoring others, and they're in that process of creating leaders. And that's what I'm excited about.
Oh man, that was great. I appreciate you, Sal. Thank you so much for your time, man. I know you got a busy schedule. Actually, I love what you just said. I'm going to try to clip that because if anybody watched that that was great, man. I appreciate you. And then this is my purpose, is just to connect with people, get value from people. And I feel like I feel like I just leveled up, bro. Like, I appreciate you. So thank you so much for your time, my friend.
Really?
Where can people reach you on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter?
I'm everywhere. Not so much on Twitter, but Facebook, Instagram for sure. I might even have some TikToks, but don't hold it against me.
All right. No, it's all good.
I mean, my website, workwithsaul.org, and I'm really easy to find. So
sure, for sure. I'm gonna put your Facebook link in the description below, so that way people can find you on Facebook. And if you have a website, just send it to me, and I'll tag it there also.
For sure.
All right, my friend. I'll talk to you later.
Thank you. All right. God bless.